Colin's come a hell of a long way to be with us. I believe this is going to be one very interesting evening. There's a lot to learn and equal opportunity to ask plenty of questions. So let's enjoy it. And thank you, Colin.
Thank you. Appreciate you inviting me down. Just to let you know, I will speak slower than normal. So for these people who don't get the accent, but what I'd like to do is, I learned this from Graham. I can get anybody to speak like Sean Connery. Okay, and if you learn how to speak like Sean Connery, you should be able to understand me better, okay? So, with 10 words, if you're up for this, we'll get you speaking like Sean Connery, okay? Repeat after me. A book fell on my head. I blame myself. Okay, so you should be able to understand me now. Not that I speak like Sir Sean. Now, for those people that don't know me, my wife would probably say you're lucky after 30 years of marriage. You don't know me. My background is I've kept birds since I was 6 years old. I've been in poultry collars for 3 years. I've been 24 years in the poultry industry. You name the type of bird, I've kept it apart from hummingbirds. You know, big, small, in between, I've kept it, bred it. So what I've tried to do is, with my business, about 19 years ago, I met a company that did homeopathy. And they took me on as their poultry specialist. And what I've been able to do over the years is work with individuals to get homeopathic remedies made up for specific conditions in birds, which I'll go over as we talk. My focus on everything I do is taking stress off the birds. There's 3 areas you take stress off the birds: environment, nutrition, and health. It's not rocket science. If it wasn't, I wouldn't be doing it. It's really, really simple. And what I did this year for the first time was I've got the who's who of bird keepers using my products. And what I did this year from probably November last year, as people were ordering, I was saying, right, how have you got on with things? What's your results been over the years? And what stood out just blew me away. And I really am annoyed I didn't do this 5 years ago, because there was 15 guys that stood out a mile who for 8 years plus to 15 years have had phenomenal results year after year after year. And so speaking about their programs, I said, right, what are you doing? And I looked at their lighting programs, I looked at their feeding programs, I looked at just their whole management of the place. And it was like lights started to come off. I don't believe this. It's so simple, you know. Now, what I say is, would anybody here take advice from a beggar about finances? Someone begging in the street, would you say, could you give me some financial advice? No, you wouldn't. So what gets me is people who start birds off usually do very well, and then they meet people who are experts. They're probably, their breeding results are rubbish or just average, but they start, oh, you need that product, you need that product, you need to try this, try that. And all of a sudden, the results go down, you know. So why are you taking advice from these people? And again, Facebook, I've never pushed myself, but just recently on Facebook, I've tried to help people by answering questions. And some of the people coming back giving advice, it's like, why are you telling them that? You know, that's quite scary that you're giving advice there when I know for a fact, I've seen a few posts beyond, that you're not doing very well, you know, but you're giving somebody else advice how to do it well. So what I've decided to do is to make a program up, and just a basic program that you can add on to see phenomenal results year after year after year. Let's say the one word that causes 99% of the problems is stress. That one word, stress. You look at us as humans, stress causes the big problems. You know, people say you worry yourself to death. Of course you worry yourself to death. So a wee story that I like to tell. When I was at poultry college, excuse me, I got a little drink here. There's no vodka in it, by the way. When I was in poultry college in a microbiology lecture, the lecturer came in with a basket and he had a pigeon in it. So he pulls out the pigeon and he says, we're going to find out what bacteria is in this bird's mouth. So he gets a swab. He swabs the little bird's mouth inside. He's got a petri dish there with growth medium. He rubs the swab on. He's still holding the pigeon, rubs the swab on, puts the swab in the bin, puts the lid on it, and with a felt pen writes A. He says, we'll put that in the incubator, and when we come back to the next class, which was going to be the end of the week, he says, we'll find out what bacteria is growing in it. So he continues walking around the room, talking with this bird under his arm, tucked under his arm. And he goes, right, 10 minutes up, we'll find out what bacteria is growing in this bird's mouth. So I'm thinking to myself, you did that 10 minutes ago. So he gets another swab, rubs the inside the mouth, puts the pigeon back in, and then he rubs it on the petri dish, puts the lid on it, and writes B. So he finishes his lecture, and we go away, and we come back on the Friday for another couple hours lecture, and he brings out A. And he puts it down and says, right, well, I want you to identify what's bacteria is in that bird's mouth. So we looked up our books. We didn't have laptops or computers at that time, Not that I'm that old. They were just coming in, I think. So we looked up our books, and it's like a little bit blue and a little bit green. There's Staphylococcus, there's Staph aureus, pretty common in everything. Okay? He brings out B. It was like World War III. Every colour of the rainbow. And it's like, wait a minute, there's Staphylococcus, Staph aureus. Wait a minute, that's E. coli. And that's such and such, and that's such and such. And it was like, unbelievable. We thought that bird was relaxed, under his arm, tucked under his arm for 10 minutes. But the wee bird's like, panic, what's happening, what's going on? It would have been more relaxed if in the basket than what it was seeing what was going on. So the multiplication in bacteria under 10 minutes was phenomenal, and everything multiplied. So what kills your birds under stress is what multiplies the quickest. The two main things are cocci and megabac. Now, cocci costs the food industry, meat production, billions a year. Animals and birds die of cocci all the time, And under stress, what cocci does is it's got a habit of saying, this bird's stressed. I must multiply so I can produce eggs that will be excreted from the bird and I can get into another host and survive. That's just the mentality of cocci, the way it works. Megabac as well. So all these people who say, oh, if you've got birds dying, you need to go and send it to a lab. If you don't get that bird within an hour of death into a lab, the chances are they won't find out what it is because it's dead, In the poultry industry, we had to take birds that had symptoms live or know we could get to the place within an hour so they could check it, and we always phoned ahead. But these people that check, you might find a wee bit cocci, a wee bit megabac. There's other things you might find, but you probably won't find what caused the death. So 99.9% of the times when something dies, it's stress. It's the multiplication of bacteria. So speaking to all these guys, I looked at what they were using, and they say there's stress on the environment, stress on nutrition, and stress on the health. So with the homeopathic remedies, what we do is it switches the immune system on. We've got people that you buy birds from, and they're using things to suppress cocci. They're using things to suppress the bacteria in the bird. And when you get it home, what you'll find is the bird quickly goes downhill because you haven't kept it on it. So the stress of moving the bird, as well as it not having the blocker, whether it's coccidiostat of some sort, it just goes downhill. And I got lots of phone calls from lots of people regular saying, I've spent silly money on this good birds from X, Y, Z, and it's on all types of birds, and I've got nothing from it, And the sad fact is, you haven't maintained that, and they haven't told you what they're on, and so that's why there's a crash. With the homeopathic remedies, we switch the immune system on, and the remedies last from 3 to 6 months. Every bird and animal is different, but a minimum of 3 months. So, for example, I had a budgerigar. I'd just like to ask, who has budgies here? Who has canaries? Has anybody got anything else? Cockatiels. What? Chickens, quails. Right. To be honest, this applies over the board. Okay? Don't think and say I have pigeons, it doesn't apply to me. It applies to everything over the board. We've worked with people over the years to get samples of birds that had symptoms. Okay? So I had an opaline spangle violet hen, cracking hen, started to go light. So I phoned them up and says, look, this is the symptoms. It's classic going light. Sent the bird down to them. They killed it, took a remedy from it, and they said, right, the main two things, because it was live when they got it, they killed it and did the autopsy. Right, the main two is cocci and megabac. That's the two main ones. But anything else that was grown in that bird, when the homeopathic remedy was made up, it gets switched on in the birds that have the same symptoms. You can use it as a preventative, you know. Coxy happens, you know, megaback, under stress. It's usually after the hens have finished breeding. When the youngsters come out, they're under stress because they have to start feeding themselves. When they go through the molt, you know, certain times a year that the stress is, that's when you get coxy, you know. And quite often it's the better birds because they're under more stress. You know, they've got more feathers to carry. They've got, you know, more issues, you know. So the remedy was made up from that. I'm not allowed to make any medical claims, and I don't. But every bird of every variety that's had the same symptoms, it's switched the immune system on, and I get phone calls back weeks later. That bird I thought was going to lose it on eggs. Or I've been up to a big show in the islands, and an old boy comes up and says, Colin, I want you to see this bird. I just finished setting my stand up, and they just finished all the judging. A nice Gloucester cock sitting there with the rosettes round about it. See that bird there? I phoned you 2 weeks ago. Ah, you did, Sandy, that's right. She says, I thought that was the bird I thought was going to lose for going like, you know. And I love seeing results. I'm only interested in results, you know. So for the last 15 years, I've said to the pigeon boys, get me a bird that's died of young bird sickness and we'll give you a remedy. Now, young bird sickness in pigeons is brought on by stress, and nobody's put their finger on it, you know, and you read all the papers about it, and it's, oh, it's coxy, it's, they're sick, it's scouring, it's this, that's the next thing. What they've done is they've put the birds into darkness, put them under stress, there's no ventilation, and what happens is everything multiplies. So this is why they see all the different symptoms with the sour crop and all the rest. They put the bird under stress. And people who haven't done that, because they're alongside people who have with their lofts, they're getting the same thing, and the bird's coming down with the same thing because it's getting passed on. So just last week we had a remedy there. It's gone back to the chap and someone else who had the same symptoms, and I'm just looking forward to the results coming back. But I've been after that for 15 years, you know. But pigeon boys are secretive. But growing up, I learned very fast. I was a 6-year-old going into everybody's sheds as a kid, all types of birds. You know, when I look back now at what I used to do, I don't think a child would get away with, you know, go around sitting in old boys' sheds and talking birds and that, you know. People would wonder what was going on. But before I went to college, I thought, these pigeon boys, they're experts. They know everything, you know. And it was the Canary boys next, and the British boys, and then the Budgie boys and the Foreign boys, you know. The Budgie boys would buy a bird for silly money, but they wouldn't look after it properly, you know. That was what I would take in as a kid growing up, until I got to college and I realised these pigeon boys would try anything just to get ahead. The amount of times I was sitting in a place and, Colin, I'm trying this, you know, don't tell anybody else, you know. Okay, I won't tell anybody else. And then you go to another shed and they were trying something slightly different to get a little bit edge against the other pigeon boys, you know. But say, it's not rocket science and it's very simple. So what I realised with these guys I was speaking to is they were using 307 for coxy megaback. Now, what they were doing is they were doing it every 3 months. They were putting 2 mils, it's so easy to use. They were putting 2 mils per litre in the drinking water. So say, for example, this was a 2-litre bottle. You're filling that up with 2 litres, and that's going to do all your birds. You want to leave a little bit left, so don't fill the drinkers up properly. Draw up 2 mils, but by the way, with homeopathy, you need to knock the bottle 30 times just to activate the homeopathy. Doesn't matter if you do over 30 times, but 30 times, you put it to the ear, you'll hear it fizzing. Now, we go in the farms and we're treating cattle and sheep, and the farmers always say, do you have to dance around the trees naked at moonlight? If you want to do that, that's up to you, that's fine. But no, you don't. But the only thing that null and voids homeopathy is aniseed. So if you have conditioning seed and you're feeding aniseed, that will null and void any homeopathy you use. So what you do is you draw out 4 mils. I don't know. Honestly, don't know, but that's been the principle since I've been doing it. Don't use aniseed roundabout when you're using homeopathy. It's like asking, why does the sun rise in the east and set in the west? I just don't go there. You know, we don't see that much sun in Scotland anyway, so we just enjoy it, you know. But basically, what you're doing is 4 mils into this, and then you top up all your drinkers, leave a little bit left, and then what you do is you just top that up. So for the next day, it's there. You put that in the fridge. It's good for 18 months. And then you just top that up, leave a little bit left. So for the 5 days, you're topping it up. You've only used 4 mils. So it's very economical, very economical. And then 3 months later, you do the same. I've had guys, I did a talk across in Lurgan, And some of the guys that bought the products, they basically said, how quick does this work? I says, well, sometimes 4 hours, and you can see a difference in the bird. If you've got a bird going light, sometimes within 4 hours, if that's got it into the system, you'll see a difference. Now, he did some of his birds, and some of them were hanging. He didn't know that it just went quite right. He phoned me at 5 o'clock at night. He said, I put this in first thing in the morning on the Sunday. And I said, Sunday night, I can't believe the difference in all the birds, So you can see results that quick. But we do it for 5 days just to make sure that it's got into the system. You can also put into your egg food if you want. You can also spray the birds, and as they preen themselves, the homeopathic remedy in the water will get in the system. I better put this down, I'll hit myself. So the homeopathic remedies, the main ones we're looking at are 307, going light, coccimegabac, because we know that's the 2 things that multiply the quickest. So you switch the immune system on and keep it going all year round as a preventative. The next one's 302, stress reducer. They can be used at any age at all, chicks as well. There's some issues that we have. You've heard of fledgling's disease, when the birds start to get scrawny and go purple and die, around about 7, 8, 9, 10 days. We've got homeopathic remedy. Again, it was made up. I had a bad dose round all the shed, and I just thought, this is unreal. So again, I sent a bird down, killed it. At that age, I'm not going to send a live chick because it wouldn't last. But the good thing with homeopathy, it doesn't have to be, to know what it is, it'd have to be within the hour. But with homeopathy, it could be 2 weeks old sitting in the fridge and we could still make a remedy up from it. That's the beauty of it.
You're talking about the chicks. Is that when you see the chicks sometimes going a bit dry?
Yeah.
And then they get maybe a blue and purple belly, that sort of thing?
Then they go scrawny and die. Yeah.
What causes
That's fledglings. To be honest, because I sent the chick down, it wasn't dead within that hour, so I couldn't tell you. But when the remedy was made up, what we've done is, you have to get it into the chicks. So I've got a number of guys, again, I don't reveal who I'm dealing with, because people that have got health issues with the birds, the last thing they want is people shouting about, there's 1 or 2 people who said, yeah, I had this and I've used a remedy and it's done the job. They can do that, but I can't shout about it. But the people who have used the remedy, it's turned it round in its tracks, and they've lost nothing else. And when I got the remedy back within 2 days, because it was down the next day, same day back up, next day, over the birds, I never not lost another one. And the same symptoms, and there's the similar symptoms in the canaries as the budgies, and it just switches the immune system on. Now, again, I'm looking at 3 remedies as a base. If you've got specific ailments, we can switch the immune system on for specific things, whether it's trichomoniasis or salmonella. If you've got something that comes up in your birds, you can specifically target that as well as the base. So stress reducer is the difference of walking a bull around a ring and not walking a bull around the ring. We've got a lot of guys in the islands who would take their birds to shows, and the time they come back, they're sitting fluffed up. We do it ourselves. We take the birds to the show and they're sitting there fluffed up, They've been stressed out. You put the 302 in the drinking water, it's the same 2 mils per litre for 5 days on your birds, probably a week before you want to show them, and you wouldn't even think they'd left the shed. A lot of the guys in the islands, it ends up being a 4-day show sometimes with the boats. They'll put it on, and instead of not being able to breed with their best birds at the breeding season because they've knackered them at the shows, they're able to breed them, no problem at all. So again, that's 2 mils per litre in the drinking water for 5 days. Now, you leave 1 to 2 days between the remedies. Now, what this does is, as you saw in the pigeon, everything multiplied under stress. So the reason for putting 302 on is to take the stress off the birds so other bacteria in that bird won't multiply. It's a case of there's so many things that can multiply. That's going to cover them all because you're taking the stress off. I used to sell a product called Maximune, which was herbal. And this used to increase the white blood cell count using the herbs. But that was, even though it was natural, it was doing it unnaturally, increasing the white blood cell count. I'd have people using the vitamins, minerals, trace elements along with the Maximune for 5 days. And by the end of it, the noise level and activity was phenomenal. I'd have people phone me up in the shed shouting at me, Colin, can you hear the noise behind me? These birds are just going crazy. I've got hens that are singing. A hen in top condition will sing, And I had one guy who says, I've kept birds for over 20 years, and a neighbour 3 down came around and says, do you keep birds? They've been there the same length of time, but they've only heard the birds. But I've stopped doing the Maximmune because I was doing it artificially. I'd rather turn the immune system on, and suppress it, naturally, as opposed to naturally but unnaturally boosting the white blood cell count. So that's why I've stopped using the product. I've stopped the vitamins, minerals and trace elements as well, because when I see what some of these boys have been doing, the 15 guys that I've sort of pulled out the hat, it's like, wow, you don't use this, you don't use that, you don't use that. And then when you look into it, it's like eyes wide open, we're all getting fooled, we're all getting conned, and we wonder why we're getting bad results, But the other remedy is, of the three, again, you only use this twice a year, is BM306. We do a coxy, we do a wormer, we do a coxy wormer combined, and the coxy wormer costs the same. It's not like you're doing wormer twice because it's in the 307. Sorry, you're not doing coxy twice because it's in the 307. It doesn't work like that. It's already switched on. You can't switch it on a second time. But I'm a Scotsman. I'd rather sell you one that's the same price as each individual, so you're getting the 2 for 1. So that's twice a year. Again, 5 mils per litre of drinking water, and that does the job. And then twice a year. Now, people say canaries don't have worms, Nonsense. You put any dead bird, it's got to be dead now, into a box, seal the box, and leave it for a week, and open it up. You wonder what's eating it from the inside out, There's so much in these birds that will multiply, when the time is right. So that's the homeopathic remedies. And I say, this young man here sent me a bird that we're going to get a remedy made up for a totally different condition, And, it's fantastic being able to work with people to get that, And that's the beauty of Facebook now, is it's so instant, And you can't beat that. And I just wish I'd done more on Facebook. I could have saved a lot more birds, So that's the health side of it. There's more to the health side of it, but we'll include that in when it comes to nutrition. Now, when you talk about the environment, birds in the wild get a brand new environment every single day, every hour of the day. When the wind blows, they get a new environment. When it rains, they get a new environment. They fly to another perch, they get a new environment. Our birds, we play God to the birds, They stand or fall by what we do. And we could get lazy and say, I don't need to clean the cages out today and all the rest. And all the perches I'll get the perches next week. What we do to that environment affects the birds. So basically, between stress and what we do, putting stress on the birds, feeding wise, etc., even going away on holiday. I hate going on holiday, but because the only time I lose birds is when somebody else comes and looks after them, because they're not doing the same thing. And you'll probably agree, if it's not been done the same thing, the birds are under stress and they start to, you lose birds because of it, But what we're looking at is we need to make sure that environment's clean. It doesn't have to be sterile. It's not sterile for the birds outside, but we still have to have a standard. So anybody who's know the product called Birds1st? The last farm, I was managing a 150,000 broiler farm, and the last farm it came on before it was going to market was my farm. So the first thing I did was, right, this looks good. I've read up all the data. I know what I have to do for trials and that. Took it straight up to my bird shed. I thought, this is fantastic. It did the job nicely. So I asked the company, Antec, would it be possible to market this in caging every birds, falconry and zoos? And yep, no problem at all. They saw this guy that came down to Sudbury to the office with a kilt on. They said, you going to a wedding after this? No, I just thought come in my national dress to impress, I want to promote your product. And it was a great product. And so it wasn't until I started marketing it, and packaging it up and whatnot. It wasn't until a friend of mine up north with pigs phoned up and says, Colin, I forgot to wash down the pens before I put the pigs back in with the Birds1st and it's burnt all their feet. It's like, oh, okay. They turned around again in days, but it did burn their feet quite bad, And then when you had one or two people phone up and saying, oh, that stuff's fantastic, that Birds1st, it's taking the chrome off the sink. And I'm thinking, oh, it's maybe not as good as what I thought. So I stood back from it, I really stepped back from it and stopped promoting it. And I came across this product here called Clean and Clear Checkmate. Now again, in the poultry industry, I was doing the whole of Scotland and North England, and I was at a dinner one night and this guy comes up and says, look, I'm told you're the man that knows everybody who's in the know in the poultry industry in the UK. I says, well, I wouldn't quite say that, but probably most of them, yeah. He says, look, I've got this product, I want you to check it out. And if you're interested, I'd like to give you 5% of everything that comes in. So I said, okay, I'll have a look at it. And he was trialling at a couple of farms that I knew the guys well, you know. And so it turned out it was killing mites in their eggs, and it was good, and it was food safe, and great. So I gave him all my contacts, and I phoned him up and said, look, this guy's going to call you, you know, this stuff's good, you know. It's cleaning, you know, it's great for killing mites and everything, you know. So he went round them all, made an absolute fortune. I never saw a penny. And then all of a sudden he up sticks and goes to another manufacturer, and he takes the license off the guy that I knew, you know, that was manufacturing it. And so for 3 years, in the 3 years, what he did was he cut it in half. He went to another factory and cut it in half, the strength. Then he went to another manufacturer and cut it in half again, and it was still working. So that product today is called Poultry Shield. Now, when the license came up and I was able to get it manufactured again, I went back to the chaps and says, look, I want this, and I'm going to call it Clean and Clear Check Mite, and I want it as strong as possible. I don't want it weakened down. I'm a Scotsman. I hate the thought of sending water through the post. I want it as strong as possible. So I went to the lab. They had it made up, and I said, how do I know that's the strongest it is? He says, well, I thought you'd say that. That's it, 1% stronger. And it wasn't gelling. You know, it was just too dense. So, right, I'm happy with that. Now, what we've got here, there's so many products in the market that it's quite scary. And my attitude is, why would you pay for something if it doesn't work? You know, a Scotsman putting a money back guarantee on something, it's got to be good. It has to be good, you know. But what we'll find with this is 3 ways people are using it. 100 mils per litre. Okay, that's a litre. So you put 100 mils, 10% of that into that. Spray on, kills mites and eggs on contact. Bigger mites, it takes a little bit longer, but red mite and whatnot, and the smaller foreign mite, you know, it kills on contact. You'll see it going dark green. It's food safe. You don't have to remove the birds, but at 100 mils per litre, don't spray directly on the birds because it'll take the sheen off the feathers. So that, if you miss a bit, they will eventually come back. But you spray your, and there was an interesting one. Somebody asked me on Facebook, do I have to use this at night when the mites come out? No. You know, use it all the time. Where the mites hide, that's where it is. Ends of perches, cracks and crevices, the top of the cages, bottom, the sides. That's where you spray it, and it'll kill on contact. It's not residual. We looked at residual things, but they end up being too sticky. And when dust gets on it, it's just a mess. So we didn't go down the residual route. But again, it would cost a fortune for that as well.
And would that be the answer to what a lot of us know as F10?
Aye. I've got a product that does 3 things at once, and it's food safe. You know, what scares me out there is some of these products, the products we used to use were scary, that's why they're banned. But this product being food safe makes all the difference. 20 mils per litre, it's great for lazy people for cleaning down. You spray it on, wipe it on a surface, leave it for 20 minutes, and the ground-in dirt lifts. It takes the positive ions off of dirt and grease and lifts them. I've had people phone up and saying, is it acid? Because I've spilt a wee bit made up onto a stool with a grid on it, and where it's spilt, they've wiped it off and it's like brand new. You know, is this acid? No, it's just it turns the positive ions negative. And the same on the mites and all their eggs, it turns it positive to negative, so they break up and dehydrate instantly. So you leave it 20 minutes. I always say go away and get a cup of tea, come back. Again, you can spray up to 20 mils per litre on the birds as well, and it'll kill mites and eggs at that level as well. But if you've got an infestation that's bad, you want to make sure you get them. The other thing as well is, a lot of people with chest problems and asthma and people that keep poultry and pigeons and parrots and budgies, there's a lot of dust. And some of them go into their shed and after 20 minutes it's like wheezy, tight-chested, you know, and they can't go in, you know, for the rest of the day. That's them, half an hour and that's it done. They're going in with 5 to 10 mils. I always say Welsh boys and Scotch boys, it's 5 mils per litre. Everybody else, 10 mils per litre. Walk backwards, miss spraying. It doesn't matter if it hits the birds, the feed, the water. Let it settle down, and they're in there for hours with no ill effects. I've had people in tears phone up and say, I'm able to keep my birds because I've used this and I'm not getting wheezy anymore. I had one woman from Yorkshire, I'm not going to put the accent on, but she phoned up and said, I've lost my husband. And that was the first thing she said. Excuse me? Yeah, he bought the Clean and Clear Check Mite off you, and he used to go in for half an hour, and that was him for the whole day. He says he's been using it. He's in there for hours every day, you know. I'm thinking, I've just saved their marriage, you know? But no, the feedback has been phenomenal. Cleaning is just unbelievable. A Welsh boy phones up and says, I've got my wife a new cooker. Excuse me? Yeah, I got the Clean and Clear Checkmate yesterday and I sprayed it round the place. I couldn't believe how good it was. And I came in the house and opened the oven door. I sprayed round that and I shut it. And half an hour later, I'd forgotten about it, went back and wiped it. My wife comes in and opens the door and she looks, and, you've got me a new cooker. You know, I don't know how bad it was, but, you know, it's phenomenal for cleaning. Phenomenal. So it's a simple product and it's food safe and it does 3 things very, very well. So if you want to clean your cages, clean your equipment, you don't have to scrub anything. Just leave it for 20 minutes. No, you don't have to. People that have had athlete's foot, 20 mils per litre and wash it, 2 applications, for years having athlete's foot. The athlete's foot's gone. Dermatitis, gone. Mange in dogs, gone. It's just the mode of action. You know, funguses, molds, spores, viruses, bacteria, everything. It's the mode of action that kills it. You know.
That's a stronger version of poultry shield.
I would say at least 4 times stronger because I took the original, he cut it and cut it again. I took the original and upped it. You know, that's the difference. You know. Now, it used to have DEFRA approval on it, but because I upped it, they wanted me to spend money to get the DEFRA approval, and I phoned up customer and said, would it make a difference to you if it was DEFRA approved? Nah. Right, I'm not going to spend the money, you know. It's approved, that's all it says on it. I've approved it, so okay. You know. And other people have as well. So that's the environment. You want to use that every day as a mist spray. So it doesn't matter if it's the birds to feed the water. The only place you don't spray it on is eggs, because it'll take the cuticle off the eggs, which opens the pores up for bacteria to come in. You know, and that's the last thing you want to do. Spray it on day-old chicks, not a problem, you know, but not eggs. Now, the other area that we're looking at health-wise is nutrition. And this is what blew me away, is the nutrition that we feed to our birds is unbelievable. There's so many videos out there of people doing different mixes and weird and wonderful things, putting them into concoctions. If that can't be replicated by people who are buying your birds, they're stuffed. The birds are stuffed because they're just going to crash. Food's got to be 3 things. It's got to be palatable. If a bird's not going to eat it, you're stuffed. It's got to be nutritious. If there's not nutrients in it, it's not that good. It's got to be digestible. It could be palatable, nutritious, but if it's not digestible, you're stuffed. So I've looked at these guys and I've said, right, what are you feeding when? And none of them, not one of these 15 guys, buys egg food. But what they do is they use an awful lot of egg. Now, I've said for years, every single bird that lays an egg in the world, the chick, regardless of the species, from hummingbirds right up to the ostrich, the chick is always bigger than the yolk. Always bigger than the yolk. So you look at it and say, right, if the nutrition in a yolk can start with a few cells on a germinal disc on the top and multiply and the blood vessels go around and absorb that and it makes it bigger than what it was, that's some nutrients. Now you look at the white, okay? The white is not used to produce that chick. The white is there to surround it, to keep that yolk away from the side. Because if that yolk goes to the side, bacteria will be drawn into that and just use up that nutrients. So it's there to keep it in the centre, and it's also there for gas exchange. So as the chick develops, you know, the air sac comes down, it's still being held there, you know. So that's the 2 uses. But the amino acids that are in the white are phenomenal. And when they're boiled, they're very easy digested. Okay? People talk about protein. That's wrong. You don't make protein from protein. You make protein from amino acids. Now, there's about 20 amino acids, and 9 of them are essential amino acids. The rest of them, the body can make them, but 9 of them are essential. So that yolk contains 9 of them, plus it contains non-essentials that to produce that chick. Once the chick's formed, it will start to produce them themselves. But again, you've got essential and non-essentials in the white as well. Now, wild birds, when wild birds are feeding, when they rear their chicks, it's survival. That bird has to get out of that nest ASAP. So what does it do? It doesn't feed it wheat and it doesn't feed it other cereals and other seeds. It goes on to insects. The nutrients in insects are phenomenal. You know, the amino acids, I was looking up the other day and it was like, for humans, insects are fantastic. They contain absolutely everything. You know, we're talking about small birds. The growth rate is accelerated because they change onto good amino acids that are easy absorbed. That's why they're leaving the nest at 14, 15 days in the wild, because they have to, because the longer they stay there, something's going to eat them. So they have to get out of the nest and grow at such a fast rate. So these people that do mixes and that, like, they say, I've heard people putting dog food in. Oh, it's 30% protein once we've got to this level. And then we're adding other stuff and it's reducing the protein level, you know. Now, the weird and wonderful stuff, because we're not an industry, you know, I'm fortunate being back around the poultry industry, we've spent silly money on research because we need to make money for the poultry industry. So all these things have been researched. And so the things that don't work for poultry, they won't work for other birds as well. But we've got companies selling us stuff that, okay, sounds good technically, but how much money have you spent seeing the results of this? When that bird is growing at such a phenomenal rate, that bird has to have the right nutrients to last it for the rest of its days. Okay, the body's always changing, it's always renewing itself, but that critical time, if you don't get the right nutrients in, if you're feeding fillers, that bird's going to be under stress for the rest of its life. We wonder why birds don't breed. I remember getting really good quality cocks at 6, 7, 8 years old from some of the boys round about me as a teenager, and still getting fertility out of them. We're lucky if we get something 3, 4, 5 years old that will breed. But when you see what we're putting it in at that critical time, no wonder the bird's not standing up to it for all these years, you know?
Do you think birds different now?
Yes, we're breeding freaks.
Obviously, a lot bigger bird.
Yeah, yeah. Personally, just now, I have Italian miniatures, I have pet budgies, which are bigger than Italian miniatures, and I have exhibition, you know? And all three of them, the reason I have them is because they all react different to different things, you know? The water consumption is different, the way they feed is different. And I've kept them just for the sake of, you know, seeing how things react. Every type of bird, people are failing because they're breeding freaks. You know, you're not breeding natural. And this is one thing I'll get onto as well. But, you know, we need to take responsibility for every area and look at it because we're not winning and we're going down dead ends. And I'll come back onto that. But nutrition-wise, people say, right, I buy this, I buy this, I buy that. And I'll look at it and say, right, what's the ingredients? Now, just a quick example just to show you this. I'll go away from birds. Dogs. I've had Great Danes in the past. And I remember when I was in Canada, it was only a couple of months out and I got a Great Dane. And the Dane's in the back of the car and this goes up to put petrol in the car. This guy comes up with an MG and says, oh, I like the MG. He said, oh, I've just had it restored. He said, I like the dog. He says, oh, you know, he says, what do you feed it on? I says, the cheapest thing I can get. I'd been through college and did nutrition and everything else, but it was like, it's a dog, you know, cheapest I can get. So he opens the boot of this little MG and he pulls out a bag and he rips a label off. He goes, there's a bag for your dog. That'll last it 2 weeks. And I looked at it and says, 2 weeks? You're laughing. He says, here's my cards. Let me know how you get on. So I thanked him for it and I put it in the back of the car. So when I got home, went down the basement where we feed the dog, poured 2/3 of the bag into the bowl. And it was 7 days later, I realised, oh, I better put the rest into it. And it lasted 10 days. But what I realised within the 10 days was, wait a minute. When the dog goes to the toilet, you used to treat it like a roundabout because the amount that was coming out, you know. It was like, good shovel. There was so much less coming out the back end. And his eyes were brighter and his coat was brighter and he had more energy. So I phoned the guy up after I noticed that. So he came round with another bag and he says, right, what are you feeding your dog on? So I went down the basement and got it up. And he says, I don't know about Scotland, but he says, in Canada, we have to do the ingredients most to the least. Bang, bang, bang. He says, yeah, it's the same in Scotland. He says, right, what's in yours? Cereal byproducts, poultry byproducts. Wait a minute. Preservatives, tallows, oils, you know. Wait a minute. The preservatives, I'm embalming fluid, you know. $10 a bag, you know. I was feeding it rubbish. So he brings a bag and he says, there's ingredients in mine. Lamb, poultry, rice, preservative, vitamin C. Wow. I'm feeding the dog nutrients, not rubbish, not filler. I'm feeding it nutrients, and look how it's reacted in 10 days. So what these boys were all doing is, they weren't going for, I'm not going to mention any name of any product, but they weren't going for things which were bakery byproducts, the first one, and then dried egg, and then other additives and food colouring. They were going for eggs. We don't have the insects, but we have all the nutrients that took it from 0 to day old.
Is there vegetables you could use? Well, obviously peas are very high. Sunflower,
Exactly, you're right.
soya.
It's all about amino acids.
Yeah.
You look at a cow in a field, it never touches, unless it eats the odd worm. I'm not watching them. It doesn't do protein. But the milk that's produced is phenomenal. The best and biggest bodybuilders in the world don't touch protein. Plant-based. You know? Plant-based for gorillas. You know, and look at the size of them, you know? So what we've got is plant-based as well. Now, instead of going for these bakery byproducts, what's the main ingredient in a bakery byproduct? Wheat. Now, you look at the nutrition in wheat, it's here. You look at plain canary, it's there. But these were done years ago. I don't think the plain canary is anywhere near what it used to be, nutrient-wise. But when you soak wheat for 2 days, you change the composition, you start the germination process, and the nutrients are greater. So what you're feeding is far cheaper to buy, but there's more nutrients in it. And with budgies, you're getting more moisture in it because you're giving them something that's been soaked.
I use couscous, that's similar. This is the eye of the wheat.
Couscous is durum wheat,
Yeah, but it's the eye.
but it's processed.
Yeah, no, of course, but it's obviously...
And then people add wheat germ. Why? Just buy wheat.
No, it's
You know,
obviously, you know, so
go for the top. Don't go for the bakery byproducts with all the additives. You're getting dried egg. Where's the nutrients? You don't put water in, all of a sudden it springs to life again. It doesn't happen. All these additives, just this, just that. Add water to it, it's not going to bring it back to life. It's great for lazy people, but it does nothing for your birds. So, honestly, trust me, this sprinkled on like dust, the top S, dogs, cats, anything. I've got lots of dog and cats on skin conditions that are paying silly money a month for steroids just because of their skin condition. I sprinkle on that on their food like pepper, and within a month they're off the steroids, they're looking fantastic. Pups grow at a phenomenal rate, bitches recover quicker, have more pups. It just sets the gut up with billions of good bacteria to strip all the nutrients out. That's why droppings of everything goes drier, lighter, and there's no smell. It really is that simple. Now, a lot of pre and probiotics, they'll have vitamins, minerals, and trace elements. Why are you putting vitamins and minerals and trace elements into a product when all you want to do is increase the bacteria so they can take it out what you're feeding it? You're not trying to add vitamins and minerals, trace elements at the same time. About 9 years ago, a good friend of mine, the guy's a bit of a recluse, he keeps all sorts of birds. Guy's a multi-millionaire, I speak to him every other week. He phoned me up and he says, Colin, I've taken every pre and probiotic on the market and I've sent it across to Switzerland for testing. And I says, okay, how did mine get on? He says, well, they had to test yours twice. He says, don't worry, I didn't pay for it twice, but it was so far ahead of the rest that we had to check it twice. He said, every pre and probiotic that was on the market with one application was active in the gut for 3 to 4 hours, and then it was resorting back to its normal flora and fauna. He says, yours was active in the gut for 7 to 8 hours. It was so far ahead of the rest of them that they had to check it twice. And so when I see the results, even with rubbish food, you know, people with dogs and cats with skin conditions, and they don't improve their food and still put this on, they're still stripping more nutrients out to improve the condition. You know, I can get dogs and cats to live an extra 3, 4, 5 years healthy just by adding top S and 3 times a week, putting in vegetables, a third of the food 3 times a week. Get a vegetable that the dog or cat likes, and the difference that makes is unbelievable, you know, just with the nutrients. Again, it's the amino acids from these vegetables.
How much do you use of that stuff?
It's like pepper. You can't, everything I've got, you can't overdose, but less is more. A light dust and light pepper's fine. Somebody with 50 birds, that could last them a year, quite easy. You know.
Put that on your soaked wheat?
I put it on the soaked wheat as well.
For the soft
Yep,
food or-
yep. I haven't used plain canary for years. When I'm feeding the birds, it's egg, you know, boiled egg. Some of them scramble it. Some of them, one boy fries his egg, but he's doing it for himself every morning, so he fries a few eggs for the birds, you know. But it's still very absorbable. I'll look at wheat, I'll look at a wee bit of oats, but oats to me is good, but it's too starchy. You can put too much fat on the birds. And remember, this is a critical time when the birds are growing. You want the proper nutrients. You don't want filler, you want the proper nutrients, that accelerated growth rate.
Same for groats as well as oats.
Groats as well. Yeah, groats is just a wee bit too starchy. I'll either use groats or oats, you know, and I'll put a little bit on that. I'll put the wheat on, and I'll also put spinach. People have seen me put spinach in the birds. It's like big handfuls. It's like, boy, are they not going to get skittery? No, there's so much amino acids and nutrients and spinach. I don't bother using much else. I use a bit of grated carrot or throw carrots in it, you know, just to let them chew away on something. But for example, one average leaf of spinach, there's enough vitamin K to do half a human's daily recommended dose. And a bird will eat a leaf, no bother. So just think of all the nutrients it's going to get from that one bit of spinach. You can use broccoli, you know, spirulina. There's loads of things you can use, but look out. I'm going to put a list on. I'm in the process of putting these things down, and I'll give you the ultimate that you can use. And to be honest with you, it will save you a fortune rather than buying all these other products and that. It will save you a fortune, but you're getting the right nutrients at the right time.
Question, Colin. The spinach, I find with those normally, you get the green stuff, it goes right through.
Well, the problem with that is, Graham, is that you don't give them too often. Just now, you don't give them regular enough. Start with a small amount, they'll be fine, and up it, and up it, and up it. Because when they start eating more of that, they're getting more nutrients, more amino acids in, and you'll find they'll eat less seed. Again, same with the wheat. Soak it for 2 days. I use hot water, so it's almost like soaking it for 3 days. Give it to the birds gradually, especially youngsters, because youngsters will try anything once, you know. And once they get into that, you'll find they'll be eating less seed, you know. And if you're using seed, another thing as well, birds are turned on for breeding by 3 things. Light stimulates the pituitary gland, and if you go over 14 hours light, you overstimulate the birds. The pituitary glands go nuts. You can turn your cock birds sterile, infertile, sterile, infertile, because you've overstimulated them. Hens will go down to lay, they'll not lay, they'll just put a nest down, they'll not lay, they'll lay eggs, they'll come off them because they've been overstimulated. You know, I get lots of phone calls with people saying my cockbirds are sterile, and there's 2 questions I ask them. One, are you using liquid calcium? And quite often, yeah, how did you know that? You've turned your cockbird sterile. Too much liquid calcium will turn your cockbird sterile. It's been tested in the poultry industry. You know, hens, if you give hens, what will happen is you'll get sometimes a bit too much. Depends what vitamin D you've got for them to absorb it with it. But sometimes you get too much on the shell. So if you've got a weaker chick, you're going to have problems with that chick not being able to hatch out because there's slightly too much on that shell. So if it's liquid calcium they're using, they've had issues, either dead in shell or else infertility. And the other thing is 14 hours light and beyond. You know, people say birds take light, night and darkness is 100 lux. So if it was 50 lux here with a lux meter, and we increased the light here to 150 lux, the birds would see the 150 lux as daylight. And if we reduced it to 50, they think, oh, it's nighttime. That's just the way they're switched on. So if somebody says, oh, I need to see my birds at 5 o'clock in the morning and at 11 o'clock at night, so I need my lights on. Cut the hours out for a couple hours so you don't go over 14 hours light, and you can still see them in the morning, still see them at night. The bird will take the longest period of darkness as nighttime, and the period in between it will just rest. But you're not stimulating the bird. And the amount of people have turned around with that has been phenomenal. You know, between the calcium, take them off the calcium, 3 weeks later they should be back to normal. You know, birds looking for calcium, make sure there's a source there for them. Again, broccoli, spinach, put your grit down, oyster shell grit, put your cuttlefish down. The bird will go for it if it needs it. A hen will take every ounce of calcium out of its bones to put a shell around an egg before it doesn't lay. That's how dedicated that hen is. So, you know, make sure that it can go to a source. Don't force it down its throat through the water, or even forcing it by putting it into food. It is. Yeah, big time, big time. And yet some people, you know, say, no, that's nonsense. You know, I wish I'd kept a record of everybody phoned up that said that I had the issues.
The problem is some of this stuff is all fads. You understand? Fad here, fad there.
Yeah.
So Joe Box is doing that, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. To be honest, every couple of weeks I get somebody phoning up, Colin, I've been using this product, or somebody phones up, listen, would you be interested in taking this product on? And I'll look at it and it's like, why? What does it do? You know, it sounds good, it does this, but it does one thing. And it's imbalanced with everything else. This is where you've got to look at the big picture and, you know, look at the nutrition. What do they need that food for? Why are they eating it? It's for chicks. It's to maintain feathers. But the problem is we put our birds under stress because instead of looking for number of eggs, you know, laid, number fertile, number hatched, number that lived, we're more interested in, oh, look at the size of that bird, look at the head, look at the spot on it, you know, look at that hen. We're breeding cock-headed hens, we're breeding hens with traits like cocks. It will lay 2 eggs and it will hatch one and it's a cracker. Let's breed with this one. You know, we're going down a dead end. And these people are producing these birds under conditions that you can't replicate, you know, and what they're feeding them isn't as good as what they need to get. And so they're not going to last you years. Go back to basics. Keep it fresh. Keep it real. Get the source. Don't go for bakery byproducts and all these other things. Go for the wheat. You know, you're not going to be adding wheat germ. You know, we don't want to be baking cakes all the time. You know, we want to enjoy our birds. So look at the nutrients. You know, protein, forget it. Amino acids. We don't have the insects. You know, somebody was mentioning about shrimp. You know, I've looked at marine phytoplankton. Phenomenal stuff. You know, whales eat this. You know, other things eat this. You know, we can get it, but it's expensive. You know, we don't want to start gathering insects because that'll take a long time. Go for the seed and grasses, brilliant, because there's so many and it's a good variety. But at that critical time, make sure you're putting the proper nutrients into the bird.
Colin, how about mealworms?
Mealworms are okay, yeah, it's super nutrients. But I get itchy with them, you know, just even the thought of mealworms, you know. I've got a young lad that just does my hooks on my fish, you know.
Going back to the egg,
Yep.
the boiled egg.
Yep.
You obviously, well, it's something which has been used for a long time.
Yep.
But what about in a concern, especially what's in the summer months, like we've had here.
Salmonella.
About because you know what birds are like. They'll eat it. They'll fit half of it around the cage.
Yep.
And why not unless you're cleaning out every day a cage to get it all out?
Right.
Surely you run a risk of the birds picking up
Salmonella.
or other bacterial
Right.
issues.
Here's something for you.
From
When you boil an egg, it's not so appealing as a growth medium. When it's, you know, in its runny state, yes, it's a fantastic, tracks things. When you boil it, it's not so great an appeal. I've never heard once Sir David Attenborough saying, and the seagulls didn't produce any chicks this year, because they're the worst carrier. They're the worst carriers of salmonella. They've all got it, but they still produce chicks and they still rear youngsters. So to me, it's not an issue. You go to the highest mountain and you'll find salmonella. Swab and you'll get salmonella. But again, clean and clear checkmate. Spray it in the cages. Kills coccidiosis in the ground. It's going to kill all these things. You know, you're given a new environment every day. So if you don't clean out for a few days, not an issue. But most of the time, you're taking the dishes out sometimes a couple of times a day. Not a problem. It's a complete package. I always say, excuse me, a bird with a healthy gut is a healthy bird. And too many times, under stress, the bird's flora and fauna in the gut isn't that good because all these bacteria are multiplying around its body under stress. Whether it's stress because we put too much feather in the bird, and budgies and, you know, the birds we put feathers on, I believe they're dehydrated all the time because they don't drink that much. And then we'll put so much feather on them. They don't think, oh, I need to drink more. They don't think that way. So again, soaked wheat is phenomenal because you're getting more moisture into that bird, you know, and you see the bird thriving when that happens, you know. But no, I like dusting. I put on this, way back at the beginning, all creatures health check takes no responsibility for unrung birds due to accelerated growth rate. Every year I get people phoning up with British birds. Couldn't get the rings on my birds. You read the label? Yeah, but I didn't believe it. Why would we put it on, you know? I had a smooth collie pup that at 5 weeks old I went down from Scotland down to Blackburn to see the pup. Now, the woman said she had 13 pups, and there's only about 70 smooth collies bred, so you have to wait a long while to get one. The four that there was 8 left. There was 4 big ones, and then 4 that were a bit smaller. You could see the difference. So I picked the biggest dog that was in the smore because the big 4, all the big 4 were spoken for. And I says, you don't mind if I send you down some of this top S? It's a pre and probiotic. No, not a problem, you know. So I sent down enough to do the bitch and all her dogs and all the pups. She phoned me back within a week and says, wow, the pups are no longer skittery and their coats are looking great and they're firm, you know, you're picking up solid at the back of them and looking great. And because I was away at my brother's in Norway, I wasn't going to be able to come down at 8 weeks to pick the dog up. So it was 10 weeks by the time I got down. And when I got down, she had the biggest dog and the biggest bitch. She had the runt of the litter, which was a bitch, and she had my dog Splash. You could hardly tell the difference between them. Now, the dogs, I gave her one of these to give to every person taking a pup away to keep them on it. Now, Splash was on it for 18 months. She kept the other 2 dogs on, but we don't know about the rest. But I never got a phone call from anybody to reorder. My dog and her 2 dogs were 3 inches bigger than standard. You know, you're not going to make a 5 fancy into a border, but you're going to get it to where it's going to go quicker. So people that are putting this on their greenies and that, instead of coming out the way and coming down and then starting to go light, they're coming out far better further, a couple of days early, but they're more set up and the gut's set up to absorb the nutrients, and so they're not going to go light. And I have a lot of guys that don't use a 307 because their greenies don't go light anymore because of the way it's set up. But see, it's not rocket science, honestly, but we need to take responsibility for our selection of birds as well. You know, we need to get the nutrition spot on, and I say you can save yourself a fortune and do it right. We need to get the health of the bird, knowing what issues they have, switch the immune system on. So when you sell a bird to somebody, it's not going to crash. You could be confident, you know, if you've done it within a couple of months, that immunity is going to last. If you're on stress reducer, you're not going to have issues. If your birds are going to shows, you're not going to have issues. Talking about stress, if you buy a bird from anywhere, to me, you've got 2 choices. You buy it prepared to put it straight up for breeding. Because if you take a bird from one cage in a hut to another cage to breed, or drive 200 miles and take a bird from there and put it into a breeding pen, the birds think, time to breed. Oh, there's a hen, or there's a cock, you know. It's time to breed. It doesn't think about stress. You either do that, buying the bird knowing you're going to do that, or else you say, right, I'm going to leave this for a couple of months to settle down, get into the routine, and then we'll put it up. That's the choices you have when you're bringing birds. Don't give it a chance to think about stress. Okay, it's stress when it's in the car, you know, but as soon as you get in with that hen or that cock, it's like, oh, hello, you know, and they're not thinking stress. Simple as that.
What about quarantine?
Sorry?
That means you're not quarantined.
No. I've kept all sorts of birds. The only thing with quarantine is don't go from the oldest to the youngest. Always do the youngest chicks first and move up the way, especially if you're not washing your hands in between. You know, there's some good gels and that you can get nowadays. You can get good wipes, but you need a level immunity. You know, you really do need a level immunity. If you made your place sterile, you know, it wouldn't work. You know, we're not even trying to make the bird sterile, what we're doing here. You know, but you have to think of that bird that's coming in. You know, how many people have had a cock bird that hasn't laid an egg and they've given it to somebody else and all of a sudden they're filling eggs? Yeah. All the time. No, sorry, fertilise. Up in Scotland, we're different, you know, we don't associate the difference. No, you're right. You know, how many times you had a cock that hasn't filled an egg and you give it away to somebody and all of a sudden they're getting eggs filled? Stress. You know, it could be in the environment, there could be a little branch that's waving back and forward and that bird's stressed out because of that branch and it's made it sterile. You take it to a different environment and it's not got the same stress. It could be a different bird, it could be anything that causes it, and the stress goes off the bird and all of a sudden it's fertile. You know, happens with canaries, it happens with all types of birds. I've heard it over the years. You know, stress is the key word. The key word. Does anybody have any questions, or you want to stop for a break? Or? Yep.
You know, you said that you soak the wheat for 2 days.
Yep.
Do you put anything in the water?
5 to 10 mils of that will get rid of mold. Has anybody got any questions?
Don't be smart.
Easy, easy. Come to Scotland, I'll show you.
Obviously, talk about protein. Obviously, egg. In the canary world, a lot of people are talking about using pinkies.
Right.
Would you say that's a good thing, or?
It's not a bad thing because a pinky would be, to me, the almost equivalent of some of these insects.
Yeah, obviously it's easy, it's frozen.
Yeah, yeah,
They put it out every day.
yeah. When you're looking at chicks at a critical time, you can put lots of things in and they'll do the job. But you want to put in the most nutrients you can so it grows at such a fast rate, even without the top S. You know, top S will make it fly, you know, growth-wise. But you want to make sure that you have the right kind of nutrients to accelerate that growth rate ASAP. And there's things you can put in that, yes, it'll do the job, but you've got to think of the bird's life 5-6 years down the line. What have you put onto that bird as a chick? And is it still going to be able to breed 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years down the line? You know. So yeah, pinkies will do the job. What I would love to do, and it'll be done soon, and it'll be up online for everybody, is there's the top of the nutrients, right? There's the next rung down. That's the next rung down. So between people having busy lives and all the rest and affordability, I'm looking at the top things being the cheapest, you know, and then coming down, and it's more convenience for people. So that's what I'm looking to do, and pinkies will be on it. Insects are phenomenal, but to buy insectivorous food, one, it's not fresh, and two, it's expensive. Whereas I say, you've got the yolk, you've got the white, you know, the chick's already got to day one. Why not continue with that till it's up? And beyond as well for maintenance.
What's a pinky?
A pinky, it's the fifth finger. The fifth finger. 10, I've got 11 fingers. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and 5 make 11.
You can buy them from
Yeah.
local.
Yeah.
They're frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, frozen maggots. No.
Confusion.
Yeah, we use them for like British
Confusion.
and foreign bills.
There's a question at the back there.
Yes, when you talked about the wheat products, what is the one you can recommend?
I would go into any grain store and say, I'm looking for a bag of wheat.
It's not particular manufacturer.
No. What you'll find is a lot of guys will buy the organic, and what they find is on day 3 it's starting to sprout. You know, you'll get normal wheat starting to sprout on day 3 as well. But I don't take things past the sprouting stage. I want them to be starting to germinate so that the composition changes. The nutrients are far better when they start to germinate as opposed to just a dry seed. So anyone at all.
Would you leave it? Sorry, it's got half earlier. Would you leave it in there for long once it's?
I use hot water, but what I'll do is I'll use the Clean and Clear Checkmate 10 mils, and that gets rid of mold, spores, funguses, and I'll use that. After 2 days, I'll use it on the 3rd day, and I'll use it over 2 days. But I just rinse everything out. I just rinse over it, and that's it.
The birds have got it for 2 days.
The birds have it all the time. I feed it all the time. I don't feed plain canary to my birds now.
I mean the same batch once you germinate.
Yeah, the same batch for over 2 days, and I've got another one coming behind it. Yeah.
Can I just say, if you want to keep it going, you know, get it to the point you want it, say 3 days. If you then put it in the fridge, it'll stop it growing much more, and you can use it for another 3 days.
Yeah, the fridge is okay. Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem.
I think as we've only got half hour left, you've got to tell me what causes FM and you know what to do about it. We've only got half hour.
French molt. Simple. Over the years, I have taken French molt is a survival mechanism. It's caused by stress, but it's a survival mechanism for the bird. Now, I've taken canaries, I've taken zebras, I've taken all sorts of birds and made them go into French molt by stressing them out. They lose the main tail feathers and flight feathers. People say it's a bacteria. It's not a bacteria. If a bacteria, it'd be all over the bird. It wouldn't just be the main tail and flights. If it's moths, you know, why would it just be main tail feathers and flight feathers? You know, it just happens to be the warmer time of the year. People phone me up and say, I've got French molt. I'll say, right, first question, have you got a box within a box? Most of the time it's, yeah, I do. You've cooked your birds. I put one chick from this nest into that, same nest I put into another one, and they've all come down with French molt. It's hereditary. Every bird's reacts different to stress. When you're sitting there, I've even heard of people taking youngsters out late afternoon, evening. The time they get them in the morning, the feathers are all out. They've put into a new place. They're stressed out. There's new birds. What's going on? Where's the feeding? They're not getting a chance to feed. They're dehydrated. They're stressed out. Survive. I need to survive. Get rid of the tail feathers, fight feathers. 9 out of 10 times they'll come back in again. But if they don't, it's because there's bacteria developed in the follicles and it's damaged them. So they'll come in a little bit and then it'll just be a blood feather and it'll just pop out. You know, you get cysts developing because of the stress that's been created in the multiplication of bacteria in the follicles. But I've put 200,000 laying hens into technically French molt. You know, we have a program, first day, no food, no water, no light, and then you start to build them up again with water and food and a little bit of light. And the first thing they drop is tail feathers, flight feathers. And then they drop all the rest of their feathers. And then when they start to grow back in again, you've got birds that are ready to start laying. So it's nothing to do with moths. It's not a virus. It's not a bacteria. It is a survival mechanism. And I would breed with a bird that has French molt, but I would be very careful on what stresses I put on it, because certain families are more stressed than others. And again, it's the heavier feathered birds, the better quality birds, that usually go into French molt before the rest of them. It's not rocket science. I say the poultry industry has proved that over the years. I've proved it myself with all different types of birds.
Why does it happen to some breeders and not others?
Again, it's the stress. You know, if you have a bird that's dehydrated, you're cooking it in a nest box, there's no ventilation. What's happening here? I'm dehydrated. You know, I have to survive. Gets rid of the tail feathers and flight feathers. 9 out of 10 times they come back in with no issues. But it's always your better birds. That's why you have a family and you put them all into different nests. And all of a sudden you get French molt and it's all these same family in different nests.
So basically, if you're not stressing your birds out, you're not likely to get poisoned,
Less likely. Yeah. Definitely. But say, it's a survival mechanism. Survival.
The worst case of French molt I ever had, it was a disaster. Like occurred during January and February.
Right.
Which is, and the birds certainly weren't cooked then.
Right. What were you feeding them?
My usual mix.
You see, if a bird doesn't get the proper nutrients and it's stressed out, it can do the same thing. And say, we put things together and we don't have a clue what effect they have, you know, and sometimes that could be a problem. Or even them not being fed properly or dehydrated, you know, dehydration is the big one, you know. But again, bringing birds out the nest, they'll lose their feathers because they're not getting fed as well as what they are inside, you know. It's all about stress. And it's all about that chick being able to survive. You know, you usually find that the feathers are dry, the blood's dry, and it's, you know, because it's dehydrated. Whether it's stressed out, not getting fed properly, enough moisture, not getting water, or, as I say, getting cooked alive. You know, it's all about that one word, stress.
So if it's stress related, then is it curable
then? The feathers will come back in again. And if you look after your birds, when Birds1st first came out, I made the statement, this will help with French molt if you do it according to instructions. Birds1st acts as a water sanitizer. So you put water in the nest box and on the ground with Birds1st in it, it'll help sanitize it, but then the chick always has availability of water. So that would prevent them getting French molt. Wouldn't prevent them overheating, but it certainly would help because they would always have moisture there to take, and it would be sanitized with the Birds1st. But it's, again, if you've got a big heavy bird and you see that they're losing the feathers, go for a lesser bird that isn't losing the feathers. You know, it's like going down the dead end. All my birds are going to have French molt because they're bred from all the ones that have French molt. Whereas if you get a lighter or finer feathered bird that's got the same qualities, you're not going to have the same issue. But then if you know how to take stress off the birds, then you're not going to have the same issues with these better quality birds. Okay.
Colin, what's your thoughts on the breeders that blame bringing in, say, an outcross? They bring in a new bird, and suddenly it's not that bird, even though that bird might be stressed with it. It's not that bird that gets the FM. They suddenly start getting FM within their bird room. So what's your idea on that?
I would say it's genetic. They've brought something in that's in that bird. And nobody can tell me, looking at a bird, that bird's a French smoke carrier. It's more prone to French smoke. Nobody can do that. So it's one of these things, you have to bring a bird in, breed with it, see what's coming out and make your own mind up.
But it's quite often, so I'm told, not that bird that's actually producing the French smoke, but it's other birds around that supposedly, if it is an airborne virus, that bird you brought in is then spreading it around your bird room.
It's not a virus. It's not a virus. It's probably just coincidence. If you look back, you know...
Well, I was just thinking, could it be that other birds in that shed you bring it to haven't got a virus and it's stressing that out by a virus?
No, it's not a virus. I've proved that by...
No. You hear what I said? I said, because the bird you brought in has a virus,
Right.
It spreads it to the other birds, which stresses the birds out, and
Right.
it starts the French smoke. You don't know.
No.
Well, you said it's koi.
No, French smoke is a survival mechanism. Pure and simple. If you think French smoke, think survival mechanism. The bird's stressed out enough that even birds that you've bred for years haven't had French smoke, you put them under the right conditions and they'll lose their feathers. You know, you can give me any budgie and I can make sure I can put it into French smoke. Any budgie. I've done it with other types of birds as well. Canaries, zebras, Bengalese, pigeons, the works. I've got them to lose their flight and tail feathers. I'm so confident I would put money on anybody. You give me a bird and I'll make sure it goes into French smoke. If you know the programme to put under stress, I'll do it.
I don't think anyone wants to put the bird in French smoke.
No, you don't. But you know, there's to prove a point. To prove a point. Anybody else?
Yeah, can I ask a question? There's been a lot of talk recently about changing the pH level of water by adding lemon juice in to bring the pH level down to 5.
Yeah.
What's your views on that?
Right. When I first heard this, I thought, brilliant. I'm all for putting more moisture into your birds, whether it's spraying them or adding it, through soaking seed and that. I'm all for it. Brilliant. You can't get enough moisture. The percentage of the bird that's water is a vast percentage. It's the same as ourselves. So the more water, and again, budgies to me are dehydrated. They don't drink enough. But the trouble is, when you put something in like lemon, what's going to happen is that you'll turn the water acid. But the effect to the body is it turns it alkaline. An alkaline body is better than an acid body. In 1930, as I've said, a German scientist won the Nobel Prize for finding out that cancer only grows in an acid pH body. So you turn your body back to alkaline and cancer stops growing. There is some types of cancer that will grow in an alkaline body, but the vast majority stop when you turn your body back to alkaline. So when you feed your birds lemon in the water and it turns it acid, the bird drinking it will drink more, which is good, but the effect is for the lymphatic system is you're turning it alkaline, which helps the bird. So I have no problems with that, but personally, I've looked at everything and I'm saying, you want water to be water. It has a function. It's the nutrients you put in that make the difference. And a bird should have a choice whether it takes it or not. When you put it in the water, you give it no choice. No choice at all. Leave slices of lemons around. If the birds want to take it, they'll take it. But when you put anything in the water, you have no choice. The bird has no choice. And a bird's smart enough to, if it needs something, it will go and get it. But again, we play God to the birds. So if they need something and we don't have that in the cage or the flights, the bird's going to suffer.
Stupid question. Obviously,
Never such a thing.
there is always. Obviously, when people have used granules, I can't remember what it's called, bicarbonate.
Right?
Obviously, it makes any drug, even like Baytril, makes the water very bitter.
Yeah.
Would you say? I've heard a lot of people start putting fructose sugar in it,
Right.
water as well.
Right.
Obviously, maintain birds drinking.
There's products out there that basically they're sugar and they're just a waste of space.
No. But what I'm trying to say, obviously, because when you put drugs into any water, the birds stop.
Yeah. That's why I wouldn't recommend. Somebody mentioned an antibiotic, you're swearing at me.
No.
I've seen over the years what antibiotics have done or what they haven't done and the effect of people buying off other people. And so we just don't go there. But to add stuff in to make them eat it, or drink it, sorry.
No, it's just anything. Sometimes, let's say, I've heard some people use fructose sugar
Right.
in the water slightly, just to like kids.
Up it, yeah. No, I wouldn't even go that way, honestly. I wouldn't even go that. The same with aniseed. To me, when you get a conditioning seed, oh, the birds go for it because there's aniseed. You could put it on banana, you could put it on anything, aniseed, the birds will go for it. But it's the amount of seeds they eat, there's so much left, you know. You want to get the right kind of nutrients and the right kind of seeds. Hemp, we're talking about turning the birds on. For years as a young lad, I used to go to this boy and he bred parakeets for fun. He had so many different varieties and every year he had phenomenal years. And he used to start his birds off a week before he wanted to breed. He used to put dishes of hemp. Now, I didn't know as a youngster why, but when you look back, hemp is a phenomenal protein that is very digestible. Now, when you think a bird needs to be switched on, thinking the availability of feed, and a bird has an ideal body weight. A bird that's overweight will breed, but birds have a weight that when they get switched on, they'll breed. You know, and if they're overweight, they'll still breed, but not as good, and it's not as attentive as at their fighting weight. So hemp is something phenomenal. You put that in, you can soak it or just put it in straight, depending on the size of your birds. But that switches the bird on. They're getting more protein. Oh, availability of food. They're switched on, increases the body weight, and off they go. Every year that guy did that a week before, and he fed it throughout. So I put hemp in all my food now because the birds just love it. And it's one of these proteins that's digestible.
So what other seeds do you use other than wheat?
Very careful.
Sorry?
You have to be very careful when you use them.
Why?
Because what you said, the weight, it puts it on so quick.
You're not using too much. You're not feeding all hemp, but you know, you're just putting a little bit in. You know, like in my mix I make up, I'll put a couple of, and so you see it, but it's not everywhere. But the birds go for that straight away. But I'm happy with that because of the amino acids and the availability of that. It's brilliant, you know. What do I use? White millet, hemp, and I'll put a wee bit dry groats in, but not much. And then I'll use the soaked wheat.
Sorry, what was it you put in?
I'll use a white millet, and then I'll put some hemp in it, and I'll put a little bit of groats or oats just dry, and then I'll use soaked wheat. But I've never touched plain canary. I only have a little plain canary in case I bring a bird in, which is rare. You know, to wean it off it. You know. But then you're looking at your spinach and all the rest.
I go back to something you said, which I believe and I find very interesting. What you said,
Right.
that the birds know what's good for them,
Yeah.
and they'll eat it or drink it.
Yeah.
So I was wondering what you think of something that I do, and I rinse all my drinking bottles in Milton mixture, Milton and water,
Right.
and I don't rinse them afterwards. So when I top up, there's a tiny little bit of Milton in there,
Right.
next to nothing. But there's a fair bit of Milton on the pots, on the 3-part pots. Turn it upside down, put it in the cage. 3/4 of my birds immediately go to the pot.
Right.
And some of them, hens come out of the nest,
Yep.
and they drink.
Yep.
They're not drinking the water from the pot. They're going for the Milton drink
Yeah. Yeah.
down the outside.
Yeah. There'll be a residue there that they'll go for.
Oh, they're a good residue.
Yeah.
So, explain what would they be after in the Milton?
You'd have to see the ingredients in Milton. To be honest, I don't know the ingredients in the Milton. But if you look down,
Bleach.
sorry,
It's a safe bleach.
it's a safe bleach. But what's in that? Is it you got the ingredients on the bottle?
No, what they leave one out. They leave out the one that makes it safe.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you can't. It's a
Yeah.
secret ingredient.
Well, that's what I do with the clean and clear as well.
Yeah.
You know.
But the reason I mention that, Stephen Holland, who most of the breeders will know,
Yep.
he's been trialling peroxide in his water and he's been giving it to his birds. And
Right.
he said he's cured megaback
Right.
with using peroxide. The reason not the reason I've been using Milton, but I brought up a 10. Nicky and I have been very, very lucky up to now.
Right.
4 years of breeding budgets.
Right.
We've never bred an FM baby.
Yeah.
Is it because of the Milton?
I would say no. I would say it's your genetics and your birds and your environment you've created. But I'd be very careful with saying you've cured megaback. What you've done is he's suppressed it.
Yeah.
He's not switched the immune system on, he's suppressed it. You know, that's the difference. You know. I've been doing this for 19 years and I've built up the remedies over the years and people come back time and time again because they see results. You know. I've never asked anybody to whisper in a bird or animal's ear saying, you're going to get better. It just doesn't happen, you know. With animals and birds, it's great because they're either ill or they're well. And if you switch the immune system on, you see the results straight away, you know. Like most people have birds going light, you don't expect to show it, you don't expect to breed with it because it's just knackered. Whereas with a homeopathic remedy, I've got people that go and show their birds and breed with their birds weeks after, you know. To me, it's all about results. I'd put a money-back guarantee on everything I do, but the trouble is some people think it sits on the shelf, it should work. And it doesn't, especially homeopathic remedies. But the Top S and the Clean and Clear, I put a money-back guarantee because even if you're not a stockman, you don't know what you're doing, you will still see results by putting that on your food. You'll still see results with the Clean and Clear, whatever way you use it, you know. So it's there's
In the drinking water thawing kind, you know?
no. I used to have, say, a couple of products I put through, but one was natural, but it was increasing the immune system unnaturally, even though it was natural, if you know what I mean. So I would rather go with a stress reducer, which brings it down for everything, you know.
I know a lot of people, including myself, they use this Happy Golden bag
Right.
for the vitamins and stuff. You
Right.
don't rate that.
No. These 15 guys that I spoke to, none of them use any products like that at all. They don't use vitamins, minerals, trace elements because what they've got, they're using the Top S, they've boosted the immune system, but they're getting the nutrients stripped out of the food they're giving them. That's the secret. You know, they've built the good bacteria up that's taken everything out of the food. And they're not just giving average food, they're giving superfoods. They're going to the source. They're not going for their bakery byproducts and your egg mixes. They're going for wheat. They're going for, the source. So instead of having to add wheat germ oil, add this, add that, they're already getting the nutrients, especially when they're soaked. It's turning it, the germination to better nutrients.
Every day for a couple of years, and I've never had a bird going light or any loose droppings.
Right.
Have you built inside the
I clean the regular every day.
Yeah.
I think it's too much.
I mean, I give less than the amount.
Yeah.
Like I say.
And
I didn't know whether to do it one day, stop, miss a day, do it the next.
Right.
But the lady in the company, I know they're going to say that, aren't they? Use it every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. The problem is you don't give the bird a choice.
No.
Now, if you put fresh water and you put another one, see which one goes down first.
I wonder whether to do one, they miss a day, fresh water. Do it on.
But if you put both together, you would see which one they go to, and it would be the fresh water. Every time. I deal with human products as well for conditions, and it's amazing when you put something that's natural in the body and you see results. I've got one that takes the inflammation out of the body, and people with COPD, 3 days and their lungs open up. People with arthritis, within the week, they've no more pain. But you start putting good nutrients in, and what a difference. What a difference. I used to be 26 stone. I was into the bodybuilding, and it was bodybuilding going wrong because I was going around the whole of Scotland and North England with egg packaging, and I was throwing things for fun. But then I was going into places and getting packets of crisps and juice and all these sweeties. And when you go up in the Highlands to a shop, and hello, Colin, is it the usual? I think, oh, the usual. He knows what I get: a Mars bar and a packet of crisps and a diet juice to make it better, And I was doing that at every store going past when I was dropping stuff off. And it was like, oh, gone too far, But when I started going to Whole Foods, fresh stuff and not processed, the weight's just fallen off me, And I feel so much more energy. It's unbelievable. If you go for the nutrients that are absorbed, fantastic as opposed to processed.
French malt is a fairly modern thing, isn't it?
No, French malt was back in the 30s.
My father kept a bunch of guys in the early 50s. And he never,
In the 30s, and it started off in France, why it's called French malt.
yeah, but it seems to be more prevalent these days. Isn't it?
It is because they'll put so much feather on the birds, and it's a stress on the birds that they can't maintain that.
They don't mention much about French.
No, they don't. But it was in aviaries in the 30s. As they were breeding big numbers, they would get the odd French malt, So they're probably the ones that have come through, with the big feathered birds.
Now diet is much more simple than it is today,
Yeah. But the birds had a lot less feathers as well.
And most of them then had in large flights as well.
Yeah. Yeah. A budgie could breed properly and it didn't have to be artificially inseminated. You don't have to pluck the feathers on it back then, you know. Totally different bird.
I used to breed on the colony system, on the big aviary.
Yeah. Yeah. So did I. That's when I started off. Yeah. But we don't realise that we've put so much on our birds feather-wise that we need to maintain that all year round. People say, oh, we'll just feed them plain canary and we'll thin them down. You're just stressing the bird and then you want it to breed. You need to get the right nutrients into that bird to stimulate it, but also a bird will lay hundreds and hundreds of eggs, but it doesn't get the chance. Because when the eggs are about to be laid, when the yolks are ripening, it's like a bunch of grapes and it ripens and gets bigger and bigger. It'll fall down the funnel, it'll get the white on it, it'll get the shell on it. That's the time we need to be getting nutrients into that, because there's two stages of an egg. There's the development stage, I would say probably 0 to 9 days. If that embryo switches off 0 to 9 days, it's because it's lacking zinc, manganese, different things it's lacking and it can't develop any further. If you get the bird to fully formed, it's had everything in it. And the only reason it won't hatch is, one, you've got too much of a shell on it. The chick is weak because it's not got enough nutrients, to keep it going. Or there could be bacteria's got in somehow, a wee bit dent or something. Bacteria will come in and it'll take over that chick and make it weak and it'll die, So you've got two stages, but you really need to make sure you get the nutrients in before you think about, the bird's going down. Get the nutrients in that yolk. And again, the beauty of the top S is you're stripping all the nutrients out all the time. It used to be, I would recommend, rearing food, going to the malt. But I've realised the birds are still under stress with the amount of feather we've put on them, and we want to maintain that all year round, Birds in the wild, they'll change the source of food. We need to do the same. And we need to do the same, with breeding, pre-breeding, after breeding. But we also have to bear in mind that we're breeding freaks. We're breeding these birds that are not natural, and we need to cater for that as well. Make sure that we're doing the right things. And the vast majority is nutrition. Vast majority.
So obviously, what is the three main things you should keep birds? Is it fresh food every day, fresh water every day? What is the things?
Yes. Go back to
basics.
Go back to basics. Keep it simple. Keep it fresh. But when people start, they keep it simple because they don't know anything. It's when somebody says, oh, I use this and I use that, and then start buying all these weird and wonderful things and they have rubbish results. It's going back to the beggar on the street. Can you give me advanced financial advice? We're listening to people who aren't getting fantastic results. I'm fortunate that these 15 guys, and I really do wish I'd spoken to them 5 years ago and said, right, what are you doing? I spoke to everybody, but these ones stood out a mile. Absolute mile. And I said, not a single one of them was buying egg food. They were going to the source. And the vast majority was that whole egg. Unbelievable. And they were using the products. We play God. That dog, cat, bird that we have stands or falls by what we do. Oh, I can't be bothered cleaning the birds out this week. There's going to be stress building up. Give it a fresh environment every day. For yourself as well. Simple as that. It's food safe. The opportunity I've had with so many different products, and I've just said no. It does one thing, and it gives you an imbalance. I'd like to think over the last 19 years, I've learned one or two things by listening to other people's results. And I say, I really do kick myself that it wasn't until November last year that I spoke to everybody and got, this jump out of me. Because I've managed to turn people around that I've had second rounds. First rounds were rubbish. Second round, right, do this, get them into that, simple stuff. And when you get a phone call the next day, wow, I can't believe the difference in my birds. Used the 307. I can't believe the difference with the feeding. The birds are eating more. If they're getting the right nutrients and that they're, getting the bacteria there to multiply and take it, of course they're going to get more through them. But they're getting the right stuff at the right time. It's not rocket science, honestly. And you can't overdose. It's idiot-proof because I use it. It's got to be.
These products you buy, you've got the Budgie show, right?
Sorry?
These products that you buy, say, what the Budgie show every year.
It's scary.
And there are people who don't understand. They put on a very good, they baffle me with science.
Yeah.
They come out with, they
Yeah.
have a lot.
Yep.
I've got I've used that, and I say, touch wood, I've got no problems with birds.
Yep. What's the oldest bird you've bred with?
Well, I don't breed much past 3.
Right. You see, most of the top breeders won't get past 2 because they put so much on that the bird doesn't function properly.
Yeah, but also, a lot of them, I don't think a lot of them give them a chance to just get rid of them, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the rest of it's gone full good.
But all variety of birds have the same issues. Every variety of bird. And to me, there's only a few people in each type of bird that are controlling it, you know, and they're dictating the way the bird's going. Do you agree with that? Now, the birds are going on a dead end the way they're going. They're happy to get that, but the birds are going down a dead end. And people are buying silly amounts of birds at silly prices, and they're doing nothing. And yet they still go back, and they still go back.
I mean, years ago, a photograph breeders never gave their birds soft food.
Yeah,
My father never.
yeah,
I never, when I started, I just sort of copied the rest of everyone else.
yeah,
But I just wondered, well, if I didn't give them soft food, the mother gives them crop milk when they're chicks,
yeah.
and they gradually go up. I mean,
But it's providing the right nutrients for that hen to get the crop food.
yeah,
You can have good crop food and bad crop food. The birds will still develop.
yeah.
But if you take our budgies now, you put them in the wild, they wouldn't last
No.
a season. Not a season. I say, I'm sitting with Italian miniatures who breed like mice. I'm sitting with pet type birds who breed like mice, but not the same as them. And then I've got exhibition budgies which I can get to breed. But I'm not going for the mass of that and that and that. When you get them popping out, yeah, that's a great show bird. But I don't breed with it. I breed with the lesser brother and sister because I know they'll breed. You know? Simple as that.
What's your views on bread and milk? Some people
Bread and milk, I
use it.
don't like it myself personally, but folk in the past would use the bread and milk. Milk, dairy, shouldn't be anywhere near a bird. It's not going to do any harm. It shouldn't be anywhere near a bird. You know?
Birds can't digest it.
No,
Can't digest it.
they don't. They don't. But I used to, as a kid, growing up with all these guys, I used to use dried white bread, leave it out for a couple of hours, a couple of slices, boiled egg, and grated carrot. Now, I've added the wheat in again, knowing about the amino acids and that. I've added the wheat in, but that's basically what I use, you know, and I've done for years. When I got engaged 31 years ago, the best engagement present was a cheese grate. Fantastic. I would use it all my eggs. And then we got married. I got a food processor. My wife never touched it. It was always eggs. You know, I was every day mixing it up. So it's keeping it simple. But now I've changed. I don't use dried white bread. I use wheat because that's the source of the bread. It's like couscous. Go to Durham wheat if you want, you know. It's cheaper and it's not processed.
When you blend your egg, do you leave the shells on?
No.
You take it all off?
Yeah, take it off, yeah. Because they've got other sources of calcium, you know. And so the last thing you want to see is eggshells lying around the place. Because the youngsters will play about with it, but
Does budgies need grit?
yes. Every bird, apart from hummingbirds and that, and some of these nectar feeders, the way they're set up, they've got their crop, they've got their gizzard. Now the gizzard's a very strong muscle and it trickles in from the crop into the gizzard and it gets ground up. But if you have grit in there, it's ground up so much better.
Canaries don't have a gizzard, but
Yeah,
they don't have a gizzard.
yeah,
Canaries don't.
that's right. But you know, that's, to me, is essential. If a bird's got a gizzard, you want to get grit into that.
Most of mine, I've got one ball of my birds in brick, and they just all, they sit and pick all
Pick
the
away the mortar, yeah, brilliant. That was a trick I learned from old boys, was away across and get a bit of mortar and put it in with the birds.
Yeah.
Kids would pick away at the minerals and that, yeah.
Refund it all one day.
Yeah, yeah. Mind you, the chemicals they use now, I don't think I would do it. Any more questions?
Couple fish worth using or not?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
I do nibble.
ID nibble as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Give them choices. If you give a bird too much choice, they'll pick the wrong stuff. You've got to look at certain times of year what you feed your birds, but still give them a choice.
I often wondered about, instead of you buy the calcium, which you can add to food,
Yeah.
whether to, I'm now getting grated cuttlefish bone onto soft food, you know.
I would rather let the birds do it themselves. The
Yeah.
problem is, and again, going back to some of these old boys I used to visit, they would hand feed the birds. What's the bird doing? You want to grate everything up to something tiny, put something in a hole and let the bird work at it. We'll wonder why birds leave the nest and they get bored and fed up. If you've got chicks in the nest, I always say a minimum of 3, ideally 4 or 5, because then the parents don't get bored. You have 3 chicks in the nest, and cocker hen goes in and feeds it. I'm fed up. What do I do here? You know, I'm just going to scalp that youngster. I'm fed up. You know, they get frustrated. Whereas you put plenty of chicks in, they'll get well fed. 6, 7, they get active. Birds in the wild are flying here, there, and everywhere, getting insects, and then coming back all the time. What are our birds doing? That's it. They're bored. They're fed up. Let the bird do its job, but make it a bit more difficult for it. I don't mean hide it all over the place, but, you know, don't mash things up and grate things up to the nth degree. You know, when the birds are in the cage, I'll grate up. When they're feeding, I'll grate up because they only put a wee bit in. But when they're out in the flights and that, whole carrots, snap, and you go. And they love chewing away at it. It keeps them active. You know, let a bird do its job. Save it getting bored. Any more questions? If I don't know any answers, I usually make them up, so I'll be okay tonight. Thanks. Nothing else? No final question? Just a quick one. My son's not here. 2 days ago, I took him to the pet shop, and he was looking to get goldfish. And he'd been at me for months and months. So we're looking at the goldfish, and the guy comes up and says, "Can I help you?" She said, "I'm looking for goldfish for my son." He said, "Oh, you've got plenty to choose from." And he says, "Would you like an aquarium?" And Alistair turns around and says, "Doesn't matter what star sign it is, I'll take it anyway." Listen, I appreciate your time. If you've any questions, give me a call anytime apart from 2 o'clock in the morning. Before that, you might still get me. But it's all about keeping it simple, keeping it fresh. Stress, if there's one thing you take away, stress. Affects us as well, you know, and I want to see people with results because then we'll stay in the hobby longer. And again, if you go buy birds from other people, make sure you get their whole program because you want to be able to keep the bird, you know, that an even keel and wean it off or whatever you do, you know. But no, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you on the way home.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I don't drink, but my wife takes the odd thing, so I'll keep her happy.
Before